Welcome to KRA's The Hub, the official podcast of KRA Corporation. And now get ready to hear workforce topics and trends you need to know on the go.
All right, this is Jonathan Overall here with KRA's The Hub podcast. I am on site here at the JFF, Jobs for the Future conference here, the Horizons conference, and the theme this year is Dare to be Brave. And I'm joined by a special guest, someone that I've worked with in the past, Kim Tesch Vaught with the Public Consulting Group, also known as PCG. Kim, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you and reconnect.
Yeah, I know we've worked together several years
on a
back,
project in Las
and I
Vegas.
think since then we've had the opportunity to catch up at conferences like this. My first time at JFF, as I mentioned at the top, the theme this year is Dare to be Brave. What does that mean to you, and what have you gleaned so far from this conference?
So what does it mean to me? Dare to be brave. On a personal level, I'm using this opportunity to be brave. I just got certified as a mental health coach, and I did that because that mental health resilience, that piece, like how do we help people connect to their inner strength? And I see that as something that we really need now, especially in the workforce system and with apprenticeship. I got curious and I wanted to know more. So I actually did a certification program through the Limitless Institute out of Orlando, Florida. So I'm a mental health coach, and next year I'll become a facilitator and group facilitator. And I'd like to bring that into the workforce system. You know, I was an executive director of a workforce board, and now I work with Public Consulting Group. And that perspective of having real relationship, which allows you to have real conversations, which in the workforce system, a career seeker, someone who comes to a career center and they're struggling, if you can spend an hour having a real conversation where they feel comfortable and you ask questions that really get to the core of where do they want to go with their life. Yes, they need a job, but I just really believe that we can better serve people if we do a better job of connecting them. And the very first thing you have to do is to connect to yourself. You have to have enough trust in yourself and your ability to overcome adversity, that building that resilience. So I'm trying to bring those concepts of mental health, resilience, strength, and you do that by having good conversations. And when you trust yourself, you begin to ask different and better questions because you now have a goal. You can connect to what you're passionate about. And if you can align what you're good at, what brings you joy, what you're passionate about into your career development, then there's some stickiness. And I think too many times when we're just focused on the numbers and we have to see this many people, we have to have these many follow-ups, you have that on the career, the job seeker side. And sometimes we miss the mark because people just want a job. Well, you can have a job temporarily, but if your career track is in a direction that is aligned with where you want to go and where your case manager knows what you want to do, now you're starting to work together. But I also see the flip side of doing this with the employers. So I started out as a business services representative. I worked for a Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, so I had that white glove concierge approach to the employer. And when you get your employers engaged, then they're really telling you what they're struggling with, and they're more willing to partner with you because you heard what their struggle was, and you're bringing them solutions, even if it's not something from the workforce system. With the business services role, you can connect to your chamber, to your economic development, to your city and your county, and you may not have the answers that they need. It's not really workforce related, but you know somebody who does. So it's about building that network. And for me, Dare to be Brave, I came here with, okay, I'm going to hear all these incredible speakers. JFF brings just the most incredible speakers and thought leaders to the stage in small room, conference style, panel discussions. And I'm listening to the concepts, but I also came with the goal of asking the people around me, you know, now that you've heard this, how do you feel? How do you feel about what you've heard? And you know, I write down the words. I don't write down their name. I just say, okay, I'm excited, intimidated, but fear. It's very uncertain. And then for other people, it's empowering. So it's the messaging that's coming in, and everybody comes with a different perspective based on their role in this system. And I would say people at the conference are inspired, and they are ready to be brave. They are ready to step up and say what they're thinking. Normally you're trying not to rock the boat. Well, we need a new system. We all agree we need a new system. We need a system that moves at the speed of business. And it's moving very rapidly, and it's like a ping pong ball right now. So you really have to have firm footing yourself so that you can weather that storm and bring your thoughts and your ideas to the table to be part of that conversation.
That's good, and I'm glad you brought up mental health as a foundation, your experience at the local level, working as a board director, working with businesses and job seekers, because that's so key. The mental health element, we're in the human services business. Sometimes we say career services, business services, but we are in the human services businesses on both sides.
We're in the people business.
In the people business on both sides. And
exactly.
Mental health is important. You also mentioned the uncertain times that we're in, and it's anybody's guess where things are heading and going. And I think daring to be brave in some of the things that you mentioned there, being in the room with other people, listening to what they're saying, challenging ourselves in that leadership pursuit. What would you say now, in your role as a business development manager, obviously you're working at the operational level, helping to secure new work, but also to ensure that that work is successful. What are some things that you're going to take away from this conference that you see yourself applying as soon as you get back to
Well, I was
desk?
in a session yesterday afternoon where they had, it was about regional perspectives and state and advocacy. And Ohio, they had examples from Ohio and from Chicago. And when you can focus on doing the work, but somebody has to be focused on the partnership development and bringing people to the table and the policy and the advocacy. And right now, the workforce system, we do such a good job that we don't tell anybody what we're doing. And it was very much that challenge to make time to communicate what you do, what your value is. Because I think one of the challenges is we do such a good job, but we don't tell anybody what we're doing. The people that we're serving get the benefit of it. The employers get the benefit. It's empower your board. Talk to your employers. Involve them in such a way that they are ready to talk to decision makers. We need the employers, right? So we need to make it as easy as possible for them to utilize our services, report to us, and if they're not reporting, business services rep, go and sit with them, and get the data. You have a conversation. How are things going? What else is going? And can we get this information? It's taking that extra step. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end because we need champions right now. Our system needs the decision makers to come to the table, and this is the time that they get to redesign. I mean, in the whole time that I've been doing workforce development, this is the most malleable opportunity to affect some change, real impact, not just a report with just numbers, but to truly decide what is the impact we want to make, how would we measure it, and then make sure that the decision makers and policy makers are aware of that. And we as the practitioners aren't able to bring that message the way our employer partners can.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's been a theme that we have talked about as a company as well. Obviously, we want to tell our story. We want our job seekers to tell their story, their testimonial, but the business really is one of the strongest advocates for the system because they are creating the jobs. Those jobs are impacting the economic landscape of the communities that the folks are living in. And so we need those employer champions. We need to engage them, but we also need to do a good job of using their voice, amplifying that voice, and demonstrating the impact. I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to also hit on, because at this conference and just in the world right now, AI is a hot topic of conversation. And it's been talked about in this conference. I'm not sure if you've caught some of the sessions about AI, how it's going to impact the workforce, the landscape of jobs that are available. How is it impacting the work that you're doing, and how do you see that directly impacting you
AI
in the
is
near
a partner,
future?
and that is the message that I've heard from multiple sessions, that AI is something that you use to be better. You use it to do your job better, to communicate better. So I've talked with a communications professional, and we're going to meet after the conference, and I'm going to test out that tool, because I do have ideas, but I'm not the best at communicating them, writing them down. LinkedIn has a lounge here, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And normally I wouldn't have skipped a session, but I learned more in there about communicating. So it's AI to help. And again, that resilience, it's interesting. I know a business professional who was struggling and just in his own business, but he started using ChatGPT and talking with it, and it started to pull ideas out of him and then formulate ideas. And so he's my chiropractor. He has now opened up a jiu-jitsu gym right next to his chiropractic office, but I saw how AI helped him blossom. So I'm going to pull in the aspects of entrepreneurship. One of the things when I was at the workforce board, we focused on entrepreneurship training as something that you can do in WIOA. However, the metrics don't show or track impact. When you help someone create a job, they don't get a paycheck. So you can't report that. But they have created a company of one, and if they're doing really well, they might hire one or two more people. But the system doesn't allow you to document that as a positive outcome. Yet, high percentage of the businesses in America are one or two employees. So for me, that dare to be brave is like, I want to tell that story. I want to put that out there and see how do we add that to the training. Entrepreneurship training is one of the best soft skills. It's me incorporated. It's like, that's when you begin to see, here are the resources that I have. This is where I want to go. How do I use these tools to help me reach my goal? Well, if you've been laid off, you're probably making money. You're probably really good at drafting, accounting. Maybe you make great pies, and it's been your small hobby business. It can become your full-time business, and you can gain those skills and that training through the workforce system. However, boards aren't going to really focus on that because they're not going to get the outcomes. They can't measure it. You don't pay. You put the money back into your business. You're not getting a paycheck. So I think for me, that dare to be brave, that opportunity to do things differently. We have so many best practices and things that are working in communities that make sense. So one of the things I'd really like to see is flexibility. Continue to have flexibility, and not everybody needs training. If you already have a job and you have experience, maybe you need support. Maybe you need someone to help you with your resume. So paying attention to what the policymakers are saying and keeping flexibility at the state and very much at the local level, because our communities are very different.
That's wonderful. Kim, I want to thank you for your time here. I know there's a lot happening at the conference, a lot of people to catch up with, a lot of great sessions coming up here soon. But I want to just highlight the theme that you mentioned about daring to be brave. That encompasses every aspect of leadership and workforce development, the job seekers we work with, but also our approach. And I love what you mentioned about entrepreneurship. This is a new economy, and opportunities with entrepreneurship, using technology, using AI as a tool, not to replace you, but to use it as a tool that can enhance you.
Correct.
And so I think as we lead in workforce, it's going to be important that we also lead and view it in that direction. So any final takeaways before we depart today?
I think that, for me, when people say, workforce development, one of my goals, and I love the workforce development system. I've seen the power of what it can do in a community, but you have to understand the system, whether you're a job seeker or you're an employer. And my goal is to change the conversation around the kitchen table, one table at a time. So my Uber driver, my Lyft driver, someone sitting next to me on the plane, we're going to talk workforce development. I love this stuff.
Awesome. Well, we got a lot of that traveling back home this week, but thank you, Kim. It's always great to see you, and love to have you on the Hub again sometime
Wonderful.
in the future.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to KRA's The Hub. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about KRA Corporation, visit www.kra.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.